You're listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt, where we talk about hunting, shooting, fishing, camping, and everything else that the great outdoors has to offer. Let's get into it. All right, I've been keen for this one. We met last year because we are in 2025 now, and I've got Zach McKenzie with us, who did a presentation at the ADA meeting, and mate, I thought it was fantastic because it's something I have very little knowledge about, is the photography side of things. And after watching your presentation and hearing all about it, man, there's just so much more. I was a little bit more confused. Not confused, you did a great job at telling it, but more confused is like, Jesus, it would take a long time to master that. And I suppose that's more of a credit to you because I do love some of your images, and you gave a few away that night, and they're pretty quality, mate. You do a great job.
Yeah, thanks.
So, mate, you're a school teacher too, so we're on holidays at the moment, which is nice with what we're doing. So what I was thinking today is that we will just have a bit of a chat about some of the camera side of things, and you to talk. I know it's a bit harder to talk without the presentation you had there, but just a couple of little pointers and things like that, maybe for listeners, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So one of the main things, I guess, to understand when you first start photography, and you're trying to move away from just point with your phone and take a photo, or that auto function on your camera, if you want to actually start doing more specific things, it does just take experience. So it's time out in the field. You can just practice in your shed. Say you want to get the background more blurry or less blurry, or you want to get a moving object, so something like a deer running. I used to practice that on my dogs. But just getting a feel for the settings of your particular camera, but they'll all essentially have the same functions. So the three main parts that you'll need to, or you can adjust to do specific things, are your shutter speed, your aperture, and your ISO. So your shutter speed is basically how long it opens for. So except in a mirrorless, it's different, but it means the same thing. In a shutter camera, it will open and that image will burn onto the lens and then it will shut. If that's open really fast, it allows you to capture moving things. So if a deer's running and you want to get that deer nice and crisp, you want a really fast shutter speed. So like a thousandth of a fraction of a second, and it will capture that really quickly. But if you want, say, that real nice streamy waterfall, if you want like a waterfall that gives you that nice like misty color, misty effect, or the stars all popping out, you want that open a long time so that it has more time for that light to actually burn on. So the Aurora images that everyone got, you couldn't really see that much with your eye, but if you open it for a long time, it gives you a lot of time for that to go on, and it pops out and they get all that color. Same with lightning, any of that stuff. So just practicing that, particularly with deer hunters, the main thing is you probably want something moving, so you want it nice and fast. Otherwise, if you're in low light though, if it's really fast, it's not going to capture that light. So you maybe want to have it open for a longer period and then shut so that you can get something in a really dark lighting. But it can't move. If it moves in that time, you're going to get that movement in the camera. So you got to make sure that deer is going to be still for that half a second or whatever if you're going to have it open for a long time. Your aperture is just how wide it is. So if it's really skinny, it's going to blur the background out a lot. So it's called your f-stop. If it's small, skinny, it will blur everything else out and the subject will be in a lot more focus. If it opens up more, then you'll get everything more in focus. That's up to the person. You can also blur the background out in editing quite easily as well. So I don't focus too much on that one. I mainly focus on the shutter and the ISO. Same thing, if you've got a really low number, that usually is when you've got lots of light. If you don't have a lot of light, then you want a higher number. it will make it more grainy. There's always trade-offs. Whatever you trade off on one, it'll throw another one out. So once you start working with those, you get that experience in the field, then you go, oh, okay, it's really dark. It's first light. I want to set my camera up before I am in the position to take the photo. Or I can see them feeding down. I want to have it set up, maybe take some practice photos of just a tree, just so that you're ready. So when it is in the perfect position, you take your photo and it's on, as opposed to you take your photo, you look at it, you go, oh, it's too dark, whatever the problem is. You've already solved all those before the deer is actually right in front of you. And I mean, they're deer. They move around. The amount of bad photos I've got is significantly more than the good ones. And it's just part of how it goes. Sometimes you need to practice, and I'm lucky in the Illawarra here, we've got a lot of deer on public land that I can just walk around on with a camera without the rifle, and I can just focus on those. And that actually probably what upskilled me so quickly was I had a lot of practice with deer in an environment where I wasn't looking to shoot them. I was just playing around with the camera.
Well, that sort of led to my next question is, do you think your photography has made you a better hunter? Because you're a pretty good hunter and you've nailed a few things lately as well.
Definitely. It's much harder to get a really nice photo of a big deer than it is to shoot them. Because to shoot them, you only need a very small window to get that photo. It may be obscured, but you only need a small bit. To get a photo, a lot more things have to go your way. And generally, you're all like, if you want to get a really good one, you're within bow range. So it did teach me a lot of actually stalking, because it's just the nature of it. You have to be close. If you want to go and spend really big dollars, you can get those really big lenses, and that can mean you can push further back. You're not as in their face. I just don't have that kind of money, so I just had to get closer.
So, I mean, it's always the question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Were you a hunter first and then got into the photography side, or was it vice versa?
No, I was a hunter first. Growing up, riding bikes and things, I always liked to film them and stuff like that. But I did hunt, and then the photography allowed, I just liked hanging around with deer and watching them. And I'd take photos on my phone. I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to I'd see Gibbo with really nice photos, and be like, I really want to take some good photos of these. I reckon I can do it. And then just bought a camera, got better at it, and bought better lenses, broke those, bought better ones. And then eventually over time, you just got more and more into it, more and more specific. And it just how I ended up. I just like doing it, like walking around with the deer.
You don't have to answer this one, but what is the more expensive hobby? Because I'm always in a little bit of strife, whether it be for my hunting or fishing expenditure. I'd love to do photography, but that just, I think, would add way too much expense to my already elaborate expenses.
It's one of those things. You can buy a half decent setup. $1,000 will get you a nice camera with a half decent lens, and then it's up to you to get close. Honestly, the main camera I use is not that much better than that anyway. And the ongoing cost is quite minimal as long as you're not breaking too much. I mean, they are electronics, so rain and things aren't quite as forgiving on a camera as on a rifle. But I'm driving to go hunting anyway, so having the camera, it's sort of just an extra thing to enjoy the hunt more. I'm not, with two young kids these days, I'm not doing a whole lot of specific photography missions, and if I am, it's only local. So the ongoing cost is quite minimal in comparison to hunting, the amount of dollars you spend on fuel and everything else.
So when you go out and you're after a target species or whatever, if you're on a hunting trip, are you well, both? That's what I was sort of thinking. Are you taking the camera in the pack as well as the rifle to film a bit or take photos before you pull the trigger? And Have you lost animals because of that? Have you found that it is quite a, well, what do they weigh? Are they quite heavy?
Again, depends. You can get cameras that are quite light, particularly those ultra zooms are really good, especially if you're doing a pack hunt and things like that. I'm not taking big lenses or anything like that. I will generally, like if I'm doing something like that, I will have my spotting scope regardless, whether I'm doing, but I'll just throw my camera in, and it's only just a regular DLSR thing. It's not anything too fancy. I'm not packing my big lenses for those because I can click it straight on the spotter. So I'm utilizing the same bit of equipment anyway. So yeah, I will carry it always. I just did a chamois trip in November, so 2 months ago. I had my camera in there. I got some quite nice photos of some chamois. Got a really nice buck on camera. That was all through the spotter. I didn't have any big lenses because you just can't carry it. You've got all your other stuff with you. It's going to be insane the amount. Like if you could even throw drones and all sorts of stuff on top, but it comes down to if I'm hunting from the car or locally where I just go out for the morning, yeah, I'll pack it. It's no big deal. But if I'm doing a big trip, so on sandbar, overseas, anything like that, it's through the spotter solely. I don't worry about packing those big lenses. I'll just have a small one for close things like trophy photos or camp photos or things like that, which doesn't weigh very much.
Couple of things I want to unpack there. I want to hear about your New Zealand trip, but we'll hold off on that for until a little bit later. What are some tips for beginners? Because I've seen some fantastic sort of trophy photos, but then I've also seen ones that sort of make me cringe a little bit, and I'm obviously into this lifestyle. So do you have a couple of things that you would sort of suggest for, people that are to think about when they're taking that photo so it's more palatable to the public?
I'm assuming the trophy photo, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. A few things. We've got to look at it through the lens of someone who doesn't hunt. Because this is the photo that everyone sees, and this is the one that enrage people. You see the photo of the guy with the lion or the elephant. The guy walking around with a gun is nowhere near as offensive as the guy holding the deer or whatever animal. There's a few things you can do to help smooth that over for people that aren't into it, who don't understand that we eat it and all the extra bits that go on behind the scenes that we don't actually see so much of. Main one would be things like blood. Again, you can't. Some deer, there's just a lot of blood on them. You can clean a little off. Like, you're not going to get it all. Okay, no biggie. You just do what you can. Around the mouth, often there'll be a lot of blood, or like the tongue's just hanging out. If you tuck that in, make it nice and neat. Again, it just makes it a bit more respectable. Ones that always get me are people riding the deer and holding the antlers like they're riding it, or it's just kind of splayed out on the ground with blood all over it, and you've just taken a photo and there's some vulgar comment about how awful these things are. And when people see that, they see the lack of respect. Whereas if you've got a nice photo, it's presented nicely. Even if you've got just a little nice bit, I worked really hard, or all the meat was used, or what. And I mean, you can't use all of every deer; it's just not possible as well. But yeah, just those little details that show that you are respecting the animal, and that will make it easier for those people who don't necessarily understand it and have questions, because then they might, like it happens to me all the time in my life, people who don't hunt, they ask, well, what do you do when you shoot it? And then you've got to explain the whole process, and they go, oh, wow, that's actually really cool. That our freezer's full of it. That's all we eat. Like my whole family, we just eat the deer. We don't buy red meat. We don't really buy fish. And once they understand that and they see it, it actually brings more people on board. Whereas if you've just got this splayed out bloody mess, there's eyes hanging out, it puts people off straight away. And it just reinforces what they think they know, but isn't necessarily the case a lot of the time.
I think we were having a chat after the meeting and after your presentation last year, and you made a really good point of there's quite a few people now doing the whole journey. So,
Yep.
it's not just that trophy photo, but then it's also accompanied with the meals and giving that background story. And I think that is a really positive message out there, because it is easy for me to understand how someone who's not into hunting sees it as a little bit cruel and sees it as, something that they wouldn't be into or they're against. But when then you put that backstory to it, and when you talk about how hard it is to get, and also then talk about how the journey, I guess, not wasting meat. So whilst a life has been taken, it is also then contributing to preserving other lives. I think that's a really symbolic sort of thing. And I know a lot of people jump up and down about the Disney thing and the anthropomorphizing the animals and whatnot. I always hate saying that word. But you go back to the Lion King when they talk about the circle of life, and people were fine with that, talking about, the antelope grazes on the grass, the lion eats the antelope and it goes back in and blah, blah, blah. When we do those images and when we, pardon me, when we do those images and when we do that, I guess, story behind it and what has become of it, I really do think that's the way we get through to the majority of people, because it makes a lot more sense and it is far less confronting than just this photo of death.
Absolutely. A lot more people come on board. If I cook some sausages or jerky or whatever, and here, try this, and you go, it's deer, and they go, what? And they eat it, and they're like, you made these? And you're like, yeah. And they go, wow. And you smoke up something, and once they eat it and they see the whole process, all of a sudden, the vast majority of people are fine with it, because you're like, yeah, I don't actually buy meat. And they're like, wow, that's amazing. I've had people that I work with who were vegan ask me for sausages, for example, more than once. And they go, I'll eat this because I know where it's come from. You got it. I trust that, you've done it right. I'm not going to get sick, which no one ever has. And they're okay with that. They're against, not necessarily meat, but they're against the factory farming production line death. That is what they're against. Whereas me going and getting it personally and showing that journey, they are on board. They're like, yeah, I can get behind this. This is okay. And also, they're introduced species. So it's a win-win. We're removing them from the land that they are causing a small amount of damage, and we're also not buying meat. We're eating them. So it's two positives, and a lot of people are keen for that. They're not against that at all. What they are against is just, I guess, the American style of the canned hunt that does happen. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of fantastic Americans doing it in a great way, all the backcountry stuff. But what people see online is that image of the big fat white guy behind a lion or something like that. That's what a lot of people are thrown off by. Not there's a whole story with that, which is a lot of positives as well. But that one's a lot harder to swallow versus shooting an introduced species and eating it. Most people will go, yeah, that's fine. And then you can start the discussion of, well, now we can talk about natives. Now we can talk about other countries' management and things. But the stepping stone is it's food.
I've always hated the term trophy hunter, because you're a hunter, but, there is a element to it that people want to keep trophies as mementos, but we do that in everyday life. You do that. I have a million photos of my kids from all their different ages and that's a trophy. If you look at it from that perspective of a snapshot in time to memorize what has happened, essentially that's what it is. And I get what you're saying about the canned hunt and whatnot. It's a really tricky conundrum in
a
how
lot of
it's
those
played
canned
out.
Those animals are eaten as well.
Correct.
But that's a different discussion to, well, yeah, I've got these antlers here, but I also ate those animals. They didn't just sit there and rot. I mean, I did shoot them because they had big antlers, but I also ate them. So is it still a bad thing to trophy hunt if you're eating it? Like, how's that different to shooting a hind and eating that? Like, it's the result, everything's the same. It's just one had antlers, one didn't.
Hey there, listeners. Are you looking for that awesome hunting t-shirt or hoodie to level up your wardrobe? Well, head over to the AHB store and check out the range that we have to offer. We have a variety of different collections for you. So whether it's supporting the show, hunting, fishing, camping, drone fishing, or something else outdoors, we probably have something there that is for you. Each piece is designed so that you can look great whilst representing your outdoor passion. Whether you're down the local, hanging with friends, training for the rut, or just chilling at home, there's a design to suit. Just search Australian Hunting and Beyond Linktree and head to the store. What are you waiting for? You're just one click away from representing that outdoor passion with style. So let's get into that new clothing. Well, I think that's where that story now with social media of being able to put the picture up of the trophy, that's fine, and then what came from it. And I think that's probably what has lacked in part with the trophy hunting, especially in places like Africa. A majority of the time, I see them on social media, someone's got a photo of that, just the trophy, but they don't talk about what happened next. Or if they do, it's not backed up. And it might be because, obviously people are coming through, taking meat off and things like that. But it would be I feel it would be go a lot further for non-hunters if they had that complete image package, I guess, that photography package of everything that has happened. Because, I recently had Joe Castaway Coolis on, and man, what an unbelievable story to take the big five in Africa with a recurve bow. Man, that is insane. And he was talking about the utilization of the meat by the villagers and things like that. So that was really good to hear, but I don't think it was portrayed. And look, not having a crack at him, he did it back in like 50 years ago, I believe. Different, not the social media, different time. So way different way of doing things. He was talking about lugging away his camera equipment and the film rolls and all those things. That was just crazy because he was one of the first TV hunting TV shows.
Terabyte SD cards and...
Man, crazy. We were having a chat about that going, there's been some changes. And he was talking about he would love to have that tech back when he was hunting and being on, having that first TV show, because he said you've got no idea how hard that was. It's pretty crazy now, the access, which is a really good thing because it's also so much easier to edit, in my opinion, than gluing the camera roll together, which is what he had to do. Now, all on a computer, happy days, those digital files, and you can make that story much more, I guess, wholesome, if that's the word for it, that you can see the
difference too, I would argue as well, is that back then, a lot more people were just exposed to meat and how you got it. And whereas these days, a lot of people have never seen an animal die. Maybe if they've hit one in their car or something, but they might not have seen it, or they might not have seen anything to do with processing an animal. And then you could be 20, 30, 40, 50, however old, and you've never seen that. And then all of a sudden you see this guy who shot a deer and, there's blood everywhere. It can be quite confronting. Whereas back then, everyone had seen that already, or the majority of people have. That was their normal life. They had to kill the chooks or whatever in the backyard. Whereas I think there is a bit more insulation between the food on our plate and the death to get there, which we can now use all this technology to bring it back to people to say, hey, well, all food comes at a cost. It's just what cost are you willing to pay? Is it going to be your own time to go get it? Is it going to be your money? Your food choices will have a cost no matter what they are. So it's if we portray the right story, then we can help preserve what it is that we've got, because it would be a shame to lose a lot of the great stuff that we do have in Australia here, which there seems a bit of an edge to that these days of, we are on a bit of a knife edge as to, well, we might lose some of this stuff, particularly what's happening in South Australia and WA. You really don't want that stuff to spread around and have things banned that are a really good thing. They get people outside, they get people fed, they remove animals that shouldn't be there. These are all great things for the environment. So if we paint the right story, I think we can really help preserve those things.
It's really interesting. You just took us back. Obviously, we're on our summer holidays over here, and I was down the coast and we were doing a little bit of fishing when I finally could after a bit of time in the emergency room. And it was quite fun to actually be able to fish and not have a hand that was swollen like a balloon. So that was a real positive. But we caught I can't remember, we caught a stingray. And we pulled it up and we're on this big jetty and this group of people came over. And my mate, who isn't really a fisher, it was probably the first time he's ever gone fishing. He caught it, so he's up and he goes, "What do we do with it?" I was like, "They are unbelievably good eating, so let's take it."
I have heard that from many people. Never eaten one, but I have. I would give that a try. Yeah.
Stingray and shark are probably my favourite to eat, especially in fish cocktails.
People eat shark without realising.
Oh man, well that's the other thing. Flake and skate is if you go to a fish and chip shop and you see flake and skate, it's shark and stingray. A lot of people don't know that. But so we had some delicious shark fish cocktails that we made the other night, and I put it up on Instagram. It was unreal. But we had this thing on there and he's going, "What do we do with it?" And I was like, "Well, do you want to, it's his, he caught it, we can cut it and thing out." And it was really interesting to watch because this group of about 8 or so people, there was a couple of ladies there that going, "Oh, put it back, don't hurt it. Look at it, it's been out too long, its eyes are sinking in." And I'm just looking going, "Mate, these are the most ridiculous comments I've ever heard." You do realise we can legally take this and eat this. And it was sort of to the point I could see my mate was getting really uncomfortable and he didn't want to kill it in front of them because there was sort of this pressure on the back of them. And I sort of made a comment to him at the end. We ended up releasing it and it was his call. And I said to him at the end, I said, "Mate, we're here fishing. The whole idea is to catch fish to eat them. That's, why we spend money on tackle and equipment and bait, and I would eat that, no questions asked." I said that would make quite a few delicious meals for my family. You don't need to be apologetic or pressured because of a group that obviously they're not people that fish, but what do they think we're there for? And it's a really interesting concept is that there's still people there. But I guarantee you, because where we're staying, there's not too many places to eat except a fish and chip shop. And I guarantee you that person probably went and had fish and chips multiple times. So it's a really interesting point when you see that disconnection between where food comes from and that people are happy to remove themselves from doing the work themselves, but still will eat and do that thing. And look, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she was vegan and she only ate the chips because no animals ever died from a potato apparently. But who knows?
Well, that's a whole different one, different conversation, isn't it?
It is indeed.
But yeah, I had something almost identical. I just saw this guy fishing and caught a shovel nose, and it's like, you can take that, and just pressure from other people made him put it back. Same thing. It was only a couple of weeks ago, and yeah, it is funny the opinions of people not involved on something that is probably a little sand stingray would actually be very sustainable to take. But because it's not the cultural norm, they have a strong enough opinion to go up to a stranger and tell them what to do. And it's like, well, actually, this is probably a really good one to take. But yeah, it's funny. Fishing is one that's very political, probably more so than hunting, I think, just with the amount of species and different ways to do things. There is a lot of infighting between fishing sects as well as outside of fishing as well. It is a very political thing, what you can and can't do.
Well, it's interesting. I I really find it fascinating. Is you're exactly right. But people that have zero knowledge always have opinions. And I say it all the time. Opinions are like arseholes. Everybody's got one. And that doesn't mean my opinions are right either. Let me make that clear. Not everything that I say is gospel. So I personally think when we come to fishing, the difference with fishing is I think it takes place in more public areas where people who are not connected to the outdoors lifestyle will come into contact with that. You think about
directly,
it, 100%.
And with kids as well. Often kids are there.
Yep, because I love beach fishing, and we're doing it with a drone. That was so cool, and then off the rocks as well. Every time there was general members of the public that may accept fishing, may not, but there was a lot of people around, especially in holiday season. When you go hunting, you're trying to get away from people to make as little noise as possible.
Totally alone for the entire process.
100%. And maybe no one will ever see anything. Well, exactly. People won't see anything other than the photos you take. Unless, I saw a funny one today on Instagram of this big Tesla Cybertruck with a deer hanging off the back, and he's just cruising down the main street. I did have a bit of a giggle.
Like to go the other direction and just really force it on people as well.
Well, mind you, I think the cost of that, I don't know if I'd want to chuck a deer into the actual car, so I probably can see where he's coming from. Maybe it wasn't a statement. It's very fascinating with everything. I mean, you talked about that. There's a blue groper that was banned because one idiot shot it with a spear gun. I love spearfishing, let's make that clear, but that was a person who was an idiot. I have just never shot a groper in my life.
Person didn't quite know, and then it's a statewide ban on a fish that not that many people fish for anyway. Like
they're hard to catch.
Yeah.
Like they're bloody great. Where they live, they break you off on the rocks all the time.
And they're extremely common. There's so many of them.
Yes.
That's where the politics override the science.
Yes.
There's a lot of that in fishing.
Well, I think Mark Banasiak made a post on it saying we're coming up to the 12-month because it was a trial ban, and that he's still asking and waiting for the evidence or research on the back of this trial ban and the numbers and the data, and they haven't produced anything, which I think is not going to happen. I think it's just going to be, the trial, let's just keep it rolling. We haven't had time to get the data. Look, again, that's buying votes, and this is where the whole system is very flawed because you have a lot of people that are not involved. It's the same as
it's appealing to the public who aren't seeing, like who don't go diving, don't see how many there are, and they go, it's good. These are nice, beautiful fish. We should protect them, and yeah, we should. But a full-on blanket ban is not how you do that.
No,
I think the system that they had of only 1 over 60 you can keep was fine. Like they weren't even a heavily fished species. Like they were totally healthy.
For our international listeners, just to catch you up a bit here, there's a blue groper, it's called, beautiful fish. And I will say this, when you dive, the reason you can't spearfish them, and I think that's a fair call because you dive down, the things come to you. So it's not even what we would call fair chase. It's like shooting fish in a barrel, and they are a beautiful animal. However, I'm also of the opinion that fishing off the rocks for them, which they are in their element, it is super difficult because they live in rocky outcrops. They are very good at grabbing and ducking into holes and breaking lines, so it is hard to get them. Most people would catch them more from boats than generally off the rocks because of that sort of ability to break the line on just rubbing and friction. For me, I have no issues with the ban from spearfishing. I have no qualms whatsoever, but because one idiot a person who was not a spear fisherman, did it in a public place. The groper had a name. All of a sudden, politician jumped a hold of it, and it was about winning votes and winning a popularity contest. And unfortunately, a lot of people have missed out on the opportunity for them, or catching them, or eating them, and they are in big numbers. It's not as if this is a species that's going extinct either. So I'm really hoping some data comes out here and it gets reversed, but we'll wait and see how that one plays out. But yeah, man, you're super interesting. But then it's very different, isn't it? You cast over to New Zealand, and they have a far different approach, in my opinion, compared to what we do here with how they harvest wild game and fish and things like that. Tell us about your trip.
Yeah, well, I mean, on that, I love New Zealand. New Zealand is a hunter's paradise. Like you walk around in camo, and people, what are you going for? And you tell me, oh yeah, go up here. There's some here. Go there. It's very accommodating. Like people are happy that you're there to do that. Whereas if you walked around Sydney and said, oh yeah, I'm going to go hunt some deer, it's very dependent on who it is as to what reaction you'll get. So, I've been to New Zealand a bunch of times now, and it's just every time I go there, I just love it so much. And then there's just no rubbish. People haven't left anything in the bush, even just around the streets. People, like, I don't know, everyone just seems to value the outdoors lifestyle. They seem to value you going and getting your own. It's more accommodating. There's more land, for one. I mean, I understand they have a smaller population of people, but it's just the whole culture around it is supportive, or at least in my experience anyway. And I've hunted North and South Island, and I have yet to meet or have an altercation over there with someone who's like really against it. Everyone, and you see hunters everywhere. Everyone's wearing camo, and it's just a great place. And my most recent trip was 2 months ago, and that was for chamois. It was actually my third trip over for a chamois. The first two trips didn't get one. I did lose one, so probably 6 or 7 years ago was my first trip for them. And me and a friend spent 10 days just backcountry. We looking for them. My mate shot one, which was really good. It wasn't a big one, but he got one. And then the last morning, I shot one. It was a buck, and there was two, and they ran across, and they ran behind this big rocky sort of part, and then they ran across the scree slope, but only one came out and one ran across the scree. The one I'd shot went in behind there. Had I had another day, I would have been able to back out and go around and come down from the top and get him, but it was literally last morning, last day, and he perched himself up in a spot that would take a day to get to. I just couldn't. There was no safe way for me to get from where I was to where he landed in the way that it was just going to be too dangerous. So unfortunately I had to pull the pin on that one. And then 2 years ago I went over and just didn't happen. Bit of logistics on that trip made it a bit trickier. But then, this trip nailed a really nice buck. Really heavy, mature. We aged him. It was a little tricky because he was so rubbed down. He broomed off both horns, so he lost probably 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches on that because he looks almost like a mountain goat. But they're really heavy. We aged him about 8.5, so quite an old buck. And it was great. And then afterwards, on the way out, we did manage to see quite a few on the way out. Like always happens after you shoot one, you start seeing them all. And you saw a nice buck in that as well, and I got some good footage of him. We decided to just he was just left. Big group of nannies. I got some nice photos of those as well. And so it was this particular trip. it happened really quickly, and it was a really nice buck, but it did take 3 goes to actually pull the trigger on one that I could recover. And yeah, he just folded on the spot. So it was very easy recovery. This one just walked right over to him and didn't have to track, didn't have to do anything. It was just, there he was. And yeah, I'm very happy with him. He will be getting mounted, that one. So I brought the cape back and horns back, and yeah, I was very happy with that.
Yeah, nice. Well done.
Thanks.
And I noticed the other day you put up a nice chittle as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I've shot a few nice chittle. I've hunted this block for 8 years, and he was my PB, and he was a week and a half ago. I shot him. Nothing special about the hunt. It was the usual pull up, walk around to my normal spots, and just this time he was there. And again, like, wasn't too far away. It was only 220 meter shot, so not too difficult. And he only ran 15 meters, but he's easy over 30. I mean, he's just there. So he's was very happy with that, and it was just with private access on smallish blocks. It is just the monotonous go there, check, they're not there. Go there, check, they're not there. But one day, eventually, you get there and they're there. This guy was running really hard on some hinds, so he made his mistake. And I've had cameras out there, and you see these big stags, and you're like, oh, man, I can't get a pattern on these things. They were just all over the place, random, different times of the year, different times of day, doing different things. It was quite difficult to actually pattern anything, so it was more just timing. I have shot one before that was on 30 inches, but this one he's over, like well over. So it was nice to just be like, okay, like, he's really good. Like, in terms of this herd now, there's only so much more you can really improve on that now. So, yeah, still up in the air as to maybe I'll chase them with a bow. Like, anyone who shoots chittle with a bow is impressive. They are very twitchy animals. Much more difficult than Rusa, I find. I've snuck in on them, and I've seen them like asleep in their bed, just nodding off, and then they go and they're sprinting out of their bed. Like, they don't stand and look, they're just gone. So I do really enjoy hunting chittle. They're very peculiar in their behaviors. They're very pretty, obviously. I mean, everyone loves looking at them. And I just don't get as much time with them because, one, there's not as many where I hunt them. So I only see them every couple trips. And when I do, it's usually very small interactions. You don't get a lot of time because they are so switched on. Whereas with Rusa, I mean, my blocks at least, there's hinds everywhere. So interacting with deer is like, you bump a mob, there's another mob over there. So there's a lot of animals. Finding a big stag's another story, but you get a lot of time with them, whereas chittle, I don't. So to actually drop a really nice one was good. It was sort of relieving in, okay, I've got that. Like, that's proper done. Like, and he has been phenomenal eating. Like, even a rutted up chittle stag is delicious. I aged him about 8 days, and yeah, made sausages, made all sorts of things with him already, and phenomenal eating. I love eating chittle. They're probably my second favourite deer to eat in Australia.
What's the first?
Hoggies.
Yeah, I've heard that.
I'd rate hoggies. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that.
You don't get to eat them very often, but it might just be because because they're a bit rarer, maybe. I don't know, but whenever I've eaten.
Did you get that in the ballot?
Yeah, so I've shot my hog deer in ballot. It was on Snake Island.
Oh, nice.
Everyone's probably seen the photo. Nearly every second year they advertise the ballot. When I had long dreads with big sunset behind it. So he was a cracker stag and still delicious. And I've a few mates that have shot some. They'll cook some up and you have a little bit. And I've never had bad hoggy. I mean, I'm sure there's people who have, but I'm not one of them yet. So
I do struggle a little bit. I haven't had hoggy, but I've had chital, sambar, and fallow and rusa. And people are probably going to be screaming at me here. I can't taste that much of a difference. Like if you put them in front of me and said, what species of deer is this? I would say venison. It's delicious. I absolutely love venison, but maybe my palate's just not that good.
I would argue that it's less the species. I mean, the species can matter, but it's more the animal. So whether it's a young animal, fully rutted up stag, will make a much bigger difference, and also the handling and preparation. Just like fishing, people go, "Oh, that's a rubbish fish." Well, is it a rubbish fish or are you a rubbish cook? There's lots of rubbish fish that taste awesome. But the same with deer. People go, "You'd never eat that." Well, why not? Like, okay, if that one's tough, maybe I'll mince that one. Maybe I'll make it into sausages. But that hind over there is going to be tender. So I'll age that, get some nice steaks off her, or make some stir fry or some strip meat for burritos or schnitzels or whatever. There's always a way to prepare it, adjusting for that. So if you've got the toughest old buck or stag or whatever, you can still eat that. You may not eat it as just a slab. Like if you've just ripped the back straps out, left them in a bag, hanging out of the tree overnight, and then thrown them on a plate, they're not going to be that great. But if you age them for a while, it's going to improve it. And 3 or 4 days is not long enough. You do need probably at least 6 or 7, I would argue, and that's going to make it more tender. But if you don't want to do all that, then just mince it. We eat so much mince in terms of burritos, lasagna, bolognese, whatever. Kids will eat it too, so that helps. But yeah, it doesn't take too much effort to make the meat quite good. So yeah, if every species tastes the same, that's probably I don't find a huge variation in species. But I definitely find big variation between individuals. So, but that being said, this chital stag was mid-rut, fat neck, going hard, and he's tender as falls apart type tender.
Yeah, okay.
Where if I did that with a rooster stag, I probably would mince the whole thing. Maybe keep the back straps as like actual strips of meat, but the vast majority of that deer is going to get minced just because they're going to be a bit tough. Same with fallow bucks. Right in the middle of the rut, fallow bucks can be quite tough, I find. But you can bring that down, like aging. If you've got an aging system, then you can make them tender. It can happen. Just a bit trickier.
I think it's funny when you said that your kids like the mince and things like that. Man, mine just eat it straight up. They've got expensive taste, my kids. Like I got an Oki while I was away, and we grilled that up, and it was unbelievably tender and great. And
Okis are another one that, if you don't prepare them right, they'll be real tough and rubbery. But if you do it right, it's so good.
Yeah, You got to bash them. You've got to, like for ours, we set it in milk for 24 hours. I then soaked it in ice water for 24 hours as well. Then we blanched it or boiled it and simmered for 45 minutes to an hour. Pulled it out, put it into the marinade hot, just kept that there overnight, and it was unbelievable. I've got videos. I'm going to put them up on my socials. Just fork straight through cutting it. So easy. The problem is that my 3 children, they for little humans, like they're only 2.5 and 4.5. Well, my twins are 2.5. They can eat some damn food, and it was almost a little battle because they were, I really need to find octopus with more than 8 legs because they were just hammering it. And same as venison, they do it all the damn time. It's like if there's a real nice meal, they'll take it.
They're the best judge. If you put it in front of the kids and they eat it, you've cooked it all right. If they don't eat it, you might need to go back and have a look at how you've done it.
Yeah, look, but shout out to my wife. She killed this one. The Oki was unreal.
How'd you go preparing all that Oki with a swollen up hand?
All right, well, I thankfully, oh man, what a holiday. So if people remember, my last holiday up to Queensland was really bad because day one I got hit with gastro and I was out for like 2 days straight, and it just set the tone, and then it went through the rest of the family. So we had like this week-long period that everyone was ordinary but bad. So I'm sort of coming to the conclusion that summer holidays are not good for me traveling anywhere. So what happened is we went down the south coast in Bawley Point, Kyola, beautiful part of the world. I love it down there. And I think what has happened is when I'm packing my ute, I've got the canopy. A wasp has gotten into the canopy. I had a heap of wasps here around the property, never had an issue whatsoever, touch wood. And we've driven down there 3 hours or so, got there. I've opened up the canopy, so the side windows, glass windows are pull-ups, and I literally was leaning in, seeing what I needed to grab out, and I've just got this bang on my forearm of where I'm leaning against the canopy. And I've looked down, the wasp is there, and I've just gone, damn it, that hurt. And didn't think too much of it because I've been stung previously by wasps and bees and never really had too much of a drama. Within 48 hours, I'm probably around the 48-hour mark. It was all right for about 30 hours, and then around the 48-hour mark, my hand blew up like a balloon. I had the little sausage fingers going on. You couldn't see any knuckles. Like, it was swollen and
quite a
bad.
Long time later.
So it wasn't the wasp as a anaphylactic reaction. I got a skin infection. I think they call it cellulitis.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, maybe because I didn't cover it, swim, whatever it might be, maybe that's on me. Not great either way. Couldn't fish. Ended up having to go into hospital, into emergency. They put me on a IV drip, and then I had to do one every day for 5 days. So it just really put a downer on the holiday because I couldn't do anything. I had to be at home. I was lucky enough they didn't admit me and they could do it at home. So they sent a nurse out and they were able to do it. That was far better than being admitted. And I'll explain why in a second. But yeah, so I could still go with everybody. I just couldn't swim. I couldn't fish. I couldn't do anything. So my family then were pretty restricted, taken to the beach and things like that because we got 3 young kids. How do we get in the water when I'm can't, and I've got this big puffy hand that can't do much with. So that did suck a bit. And I thought, all right, bit of a downer, not great, whatever. Can only get better, right? 2025, we can only go up, can't we? And then, man, I'm spewing. Second last day of the holidays, we started to pack up. As you do, just starting to put things in the trailer and whatnot. So I wanted to connect my trailer. Went up and I've got one of the trailer locks. So I've pulled up the hitch and dropped the ball out. And out of nowhere, this wasp comes darting out and got me on the leg. I was still on antibiotics from the first one because I'd moved on to oral antibiotics. Nailed me on the leg. It killed. We then found in the A-frame of the trailer these 2 massive wasps' nests. And I was just like, Jesus Christ, how are we gonna deal with this? So funny enough, me mates, me brother and me mate ended up putting on like full length, weddies. I think my brother had I think he had a 4.5 mil weddy on, double piece, to go in and try and get
a wasp thing.
Yeah, no. Well, that's why I said, nail these wasps because they saw what happened to me and it just flared up. It was not fun at all. So they didn't want to get bitten, but they wanted to get rid of them so I could hook this damn trailer up. This time I cleaned it. I did everything by the book. And my mate's wife is a nurse. So she was we did everything by the books to not get it infected. And I was still on oral antibiotics. Got home, day 2, back into emergency because it was no good and I was running out of the antibiotics. And went in there, it'd gone to cellulitis or another skin infection in my leg this time. It didn't puff up like the balloon, which is a positive, but that was because I was on the antibiotics. So they were looking at it and then they put the cannula in. They were tossing up whether they were going to send me to Campbelltown and put me on IV, but they did it to a bloke earlier in the week and he was in there for 5 days and not coming out to home. And I was like, I don't want to have another 5 days of this crap. Luckily enough, because I was on the antibiotics and had the other one, they were able to give me a little bit and then give me another set and say, listen, let's just try this. It has minimised it compared to last time because I had all the photos to show them. So thankfully, we're coming to the back end. I'm still on antibiotics, but I'm back to sort of normal with it. But man, I was just, what the hell? What a way to start 2025. It happened last year as well. I'm not going on holidays. I said to the wife, that's it. No more summer holidays. We're done. But just a way to ruin. Because the first night, I think the second night, after I got bit and it swelled up, we teed up shark fishing. So we took the drone out and we went shark fishing. I couldn't do anything. I was just standing around. So it was just put a downer on that side because I was like, hell keen. I've been planning the drone fishing, planning the shark fishing off the beach for so long. My mate came down. There's a group of 4 of us there on the beach and no go for me. I just had to be a sort of passenger and watch, which was a bit, sucked a little bit. But hey, it is what it is. I just now need to know, hey, these wasps are not great for me. I've got to steer clear.
Yeah, maybe put an EpiPen in your backpack or something for if that happens out in the middle of nowhere. You might need a bit of help.
Well, I was chatting to the doctor and I said, is it potential anaphylaxis? And they don't think it is. They said, I've got to go get tested. They don't think it is. They think because of whatever's happening is when I'm getting stung, the wasp, whether they've got something on them, that's causing this infection. So generally they think, because I asked that question, I was like, listen, I go remote areas. I generally,
questions I'd ask.
Yeah, 100%. I generally have an EpiPen anyway, just as a precaution. You just never know. But then I said, do I need to be thinking? They still think I've got sort of a good couple of days to get to the hospital to get it under control. Not ideal though, because if I'm out bush and have to come back in 2 days and then sit in hospital for 5 days on a drip, that's not exactly what I want to be doing either. So, but mate, look, play the cards you dealt at the end of the day. But touch wood, hopefully I've got all my wasp stings out of the way for the next 10 years, getting 2 within 8 days.
You don't get stung too often. They're usually not too bad, but
I know.
I just weren't happy that they went on holidays.
I don't know. I said to my wife, I said, even when I've harvested a couple of deer in the state forest, they get swarmed by wasps. And I've never had, cut it up and never had too much of an issue with them on the carcass and cutting up.
Normally the wasps I'll get, usually when I'm hunting fallow just at that time where the on the block, there's those yellow ones. Yep. You get thousands of them just all over the meat.
Yep.
And I can be butchering it and you kind of pushing them out of the way just a little bit and you're just I'm really uncomfortable with this.
Yeah.
I've never been stung. That's happened numerous years. But I have been stung by one of the black ones. So the yellow ones seem to leave me alone for some reason, but maybe it's because there's a whole heap of meat calming them down.
Normally, I have no issue with them. I've had them. My wife had one land on a shirt yesterday, and we just pushed it off. Generally around where we are, I've moved things, but this is the silly thing: is that trailer I'd hooked and moved about 5 times. I don't know what it was, but just down there, that time, bang, it was just came and got me. So, something I'm sort of glad that it happened so that I know there's an issue, but just to be mindful of it. But, it is what it is. But, mate, we are coming up to the rut. Fallow rut, I'm super excited. We got Croak Camp going on in the State Forest down south. Really keen. There's a good bunch of blokes coming to that one. What are you doing for the rut? Are you started training already? Are you keen? Do you train? Some people don't, I know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't train too specifically, but I just sort of just keep a general fitness. But yeah, just coming into the rut, I'll make sure my guns are shooting well. But I mean, I hunt year round. I mean, I hunted last week.
Yeah.
I just change species. So Rooster are currently in their velvet, so I don't tend to hunt them too much. Leave them alone a bit. So yeah, coming into fallow and reds, I'll probably head out on reds soon. Check the cameras, change the batteries, do all that sort of stuff. And yeah, fallow, I usually just wait until early rut and then do the big drive because my fallow block's about 5 hours from here. So, I mean, it's not that far, but yeah, I'll just hunt. That's how I keep fit for hunting. Is I don't really stop that much. I'll just change from fallow to reds to rusa. Chittle, you can hunt all year because they don't really have too much of a season. Samba, same thing. Just whenever I've got the time in between work and kids, I'll, make sure that Mrs. isn't doing anything and, just check the calendar. It's usually what we say. Oh, I was thinking about doing something. Did you check the calendar? And you go, yep. And they go, all right. You then, just go do it in between all the fishing and everything else.
Mate, that sounds like the way to go. One day I'm hoping I'll get some access and be able to do those things, but for the moment it's State Forest, which is I'm all good with, and the rut is what I'm dead keen for. So I, unfortunately, my training is a little bit different. I'm actually out running and hiking, and I've got a stair climber and things like that. So I'm into that, and I'm actually, when we wrap this up, I'm going for a run and a gym session. So, but
I've just got some stuff in the shed that I just do a workout before the kids wake up of a morning.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier. I tend to go nights because the kids they get up very early and they're like a hurricane from the get-go. So God bless them. I need to keep my energy levels up. That's the whole I think I need to train harder for that than anything else. So, mate, I love your work. I love your photos. Tell people where they can jump on and see some of your stuff.
All my stuff's at Stack Images, mainly on Instagram, but there's a Facebook page as well. So it's just, Stack Images on those. And there's YouTube as well if you want. I'm definitely not as consistent with the video, but definitely photos I'm pretty consistent with.
Get over and check them out because there's some crackers there. I do love some of the Rooster with headgear on. They are quality. So, and I know you got a plethora of good subjects down where you are. So, yeah. All right, mate. Well, look, I appreciate your time coming on the podcast, and mate, enjoy the holidays. What we have left anyway, and I'm sure we'll do this again down the track. And best of luck for 2025 with the rest of your hunting.
Thanks very much for having me, and I'll look forward to coming back.
Alrighty, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. I know I have. Bye for now. You've been listening to the Australian Hunting and Beyond podcast with Matt. Thanks for tuning in and can't wait to catch you next time. But in the meantime, if you want more, you can find it at linktr.ee/Australian Hunting and Beyond. That will give you our YouTube, Instagram, X, Facebook, you name it. We'll catch you next time.